doing work in India as a country is very, very diverse. What challenges do you face when you look at it as hyperlocal?
So many. So I think that when we come to our specific business model, which is a marketplace model, hyperlocal marketplace, there's inherent things that are more challenging when you build a marketplace. And why many other players have chosen to build dark stores is that you don't control supply.
When you have so much data and when you have all of the tech that you have, how do you personalize experiences for neighborhoods and communities?
So I think because we have so much data, we can do that. I think it starts from the simplest is in India, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, egalitarian. These are basic things, all the way to, like I said, the vision of this zero-click shopping experience where you never maybe have to place an order again, that I just know you so well that I can just have stuff delivered to your door the way you like it, when you like it. And to be honest, to me, that's the true localization of tech.
What are those disciplines from that, or what's the mindset, or what's the competitive spirit that you brought from sport into business?
I think everything. No, I will say, I think sports has contributed more to my journey as an entrepreneur than anything I learned in school, for sure. And most things I learned in a professional setting before this. I think starting with to be an athlete and to believe that you can be the best in the world at anything requires irrational optimism and self-belief. And so I think from that starting point, that's the same thing it takes to start a company. The second is then you have to back it with a lot of hard work. And I think that's the same thing that happens when you're truly trying to be an entrepreneur.
There is a lot of data. Yeah. There is a lot of data about individuals and all of that. How do you manage data intelligence? How do you manage automation? How do you manage cloud adoption?
I mean, so we've just gone through a process of focusing a lot on data engineering because, yeah, you're right. There's a huge amount of data. There's a huge amount of data that goes through the platform. Then there's a huge amount of data that we need to process as a team to make better decisions and make them faster. So we've implemented a tool, I guess this is a free shout out for Snowflake, which is as part of our process of building our data pipelines and organizing our data internally. One of the interesting shifts that's happened with AI is that there's stronger infrastructure where a lot of level 1 analytics can be taken care of. And by giving more democratic access to your team of data that they need so that they can run their own analysis has become more possible.
Welcome to another episode of the Too Big podcast. Joining us on today's episode is Akanksha Hazari, founder and CEO of LoveLocal. LoveLocal is India's fastest growing digital e-commerce platform, which is empowering local retailers and neighborhood stores. Akanksha is a mission-driven entrepreneur who is driving and championing the digital transformation of India's kirana ecosystem by bringing together thousands of small businesses online and helping them compete in an extremely tech-led market. Through LoveLocal, she is building a platform which will modernize the way India shops locally by bringing together small retailers with their customers and making sure that there is impact across board. Her journey blends deep purpose with sharp product thinking, ensuring that technology can build communities and not just replace them. Akanksha, welcome to the Do Big podcast. It's an absolute pleasure having you here today.
Thank you for having me.
And let's do a quick icebreaker. Sure. Though we've broken the ice, but let's do a quick icebreaker. Are you an early bird or a late night?
Late night.
Yeah? Okay.
Definitely.
Why the late night?
I like the quiet of the night. I feel like it's one place where suddenly I can just be alone with my thoughts and not be pinged by anyone, to be honest. My husband is the opposite. He's very much an early bird. So yeah, but late night for sure.
Your favorite street food from Mumbai?
Bhel puri.
Can't have anything else. Right? That's true. An app you can't live without.
LoveLocal.
No, that's not allowed.
I can't say my own app. Okay. An app, probably WhatsApp, to be honest, for better or worse. It's a curse and a blessing.
True that.
With the app I can't live without.
Your journey, if you had to describe it in one word.
No regrets.
Oh, lovely. I love that one.
Yeah.
Any habit that has improved productivity for you?
I'm a very routine-based person, so I think it's strengthened with time. But yeah, I have just a very hyper organized day, and I have a strong sense of routine. So even my meals are pretty much the same every single day, and I design my day around how much energy I would have at different points of the day as well. So that has definitely made me more productive.
That's really interesting because I think most people forget the energy bits.
Yeah.
They have the dips and the highs and the sugar fixes in between. That's really interesting. If not an entrepreneur, what would you have been doing right now?
I would be an athlete.
And what, running? Something else?
No, so I was a junior professional athlete. So I was a professional athlete from the age of 7 till 18. I was 12th in the world for squash for juniors.
Okay.
I retired when I was nearly 18 because squash was not an Olympic sport. I now, for about 24 months, have become very serious about tennis. I've always been an athlete. Like even between squash and tennis, I train every day. I love tennis. But yeah, I love training. I think in another life, if I had picked maybe a different sport when I was younger, I'd be an athlete. I still dream of becoming a professional athlete again, to be honest, as a master's.
Nice.
I don't believe in age as a limit. So
there isn't really. I mean, I see so many people who are still doing so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you should just pick it up.
No, I think
I
think my retirement life would be to like potentially be Masters women's world champion or like a top Masters women tennis player globally.
More power to you. Switching quickly to your journey, and I just want to understand, LoveLocal is so rooted in the local culture.
Yeah.
What made you get onto this journey? Why so local, so deep, so specific?
I think the short answer would be I'm very motivated by building a potentially large business that has potentially large impact. So you won't find me in something that doesn't have the scope to have impact. And local is something that has a huge scope to have impact for local businesses. And I think that is very much rooted in my background. Like I didn't grow up with much. Touch wood, my family subsequently has been, very fortunate. But that context of where we started and then me going to a great university on a scholarship. And I think that rooted in me the fact that I want to, in some way, pay forward what I felt was like a very lucky journey in the first 20, 25 years of my life. And so I think even if there's opportunities to potentially make a lot of money, like for example, there are many ways to make money in the world that's easier than starting a business, to be honest, like investment banking or going into the luxury sector, but none of those have ever motivated me. And so solving this problem motivates me because on the one hand, there is a huge business opportunity, but that's deeply rooted in the fact that this is working with SMEs who are family-owned businesses who account for 40% of jobs in India directly or indirectly. And I think there's value in retaining that and building for that.
That's amazing. And I'm just trying to understand what challenges come up, because doing work in India as a country is very, very diverse. What challenges do you face when you look at it as hyperlocal?
So many. So I think that when we come to our specific business model, which is a marketplace model, hyperlocal marketplace, there's inherent things that are more challenging when you build a marketplace. And why many other players have chosen to build dark stores is that you don't control supply, right? Whether it's a taxi aggregator like Uber or Amazon is actually still in large part a marketplace. When you don't control supply, you have to acquire partners and work with them to deliver a certain experience when you don't have full control over it. And I think that inherently is challenging, but that inherently is the moat itself. If you look at the most successful e-commerce businesses in the world, starting with Amazon, then you have Instacart, then you have Airbnb, then you have Uber. The most successful e-commerce businesses in the world are in fact marketplaces. Even in China, the most successful e-commerce businesses are marketplaces. So I think inherent in the challenge is the moat. Most players don't have the patience to build that moat, which is working through a lot of problem statements. And we do have that patience.
That's interesting. And what gives you the patience?
The impact. The impact and the business opportunity, to be honest. It's very hard, but I think when you wake up in the morning and you've had a particularly hard previous day or previous week, when you wake up in the morning, you know you helped like a local bhajiwala go online. That's worth getting up for. If I was waking up in the morning to sell someone like a fancy handbag, that would not honestly get me out of bed, or a fancy car. Like, no, I don't care about those problems or care about that those users didn't have a good experience. But I think the fact that like when you meet the retailers, some of these retailers have been around since pre-independence.
Oh, yes.
You know, some of the retailers you and I shop from have been around 50 years.
Right.
You know, and one of the things that we have talked about and on our side are launching in the equivalent of a podcast is we have so many podcasts that are about the founders and entrepreneurs of India. To me, local retailers and business owners are the true founders and entrepreneurs of this country.
Oh, absolutely.
But nobody talks to them.
True that. You know, so it's quite interesting because I used to live in Breach Candy, and I had a pan shop right next to my house. And it was not Muchar. You know, that's the first name which comes up, but this is the cold sweet pan which used to be there. 3 generations. And I have met all 3 generations.
It's
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way and the service standards and everything is just exactly the same over the years, and it's quite fascinating. So I'm quite happy to hear this. What have been your biggest learnings as you've built this business as a founder? Maybe 3 or 4. I know there'll be many, but the biggest ones.
I've made lots of mistakes. I think I would say there's a set of learnings around the business, and then there's a set of learnings around me as a founder and me just getting better as a founder. I think if I was to sanitize them down to a few top 2 or 3 learnings, I think one is people is everything. I think if I'd earlier realized investing more to get that right person versus trying to be as lean as possible, I would have done that a lot faster. So it's worth investing in the strongest possible talent if you have that capital available to you. The second is when it's not working on the other side, fire faster. I've definitely made that mistake many, many times. I think it's tough. Like in India, you want to build a culture of trust, but we function in a very low trust environment, and we still struggle with that, to be honest. So I think how to build the right culture, but also not being too soft, to be honest. Sometimes I think I have to be reminded by my investors, some of them are my mentors, saying like, you know, in India, we throw around this word, and it was an adjustment for me, to be honest, because I've worked primarily overseas. I had my first business overseas when I was 20, built a company, exited when I was 25, then worked in the private sector in the US. I've studied in the UK and then in the UAE, but for an American company. And I've been exposed to a very different model of work. When I came to India, you know, this word family gets thrown around a lot in the workplace.
Yes.
And I think it hides all manner of sin because I believe in teams, and I don't believe workplaces are supposed to be families. And I think the difference is in a team, it is a performance-based culture, and it doesn't make you inhumane in that sense. If you look at sports teams have some of the strongest cultures you could ever imagine. Like the way people come together to help each other and support each other. But at the end of the day, on that given day, if a player is injured and not performing up to the mark, then they're not on the field or on the pitch or on the court. And I think the term family here actually, I think, diminishes the performance-based culture. And I think that's something that I've had to kind of push a lot more internally in our culture, that we want to be a team, and team does not preclude empathy. high performance teams actually are also very supportive of each other. But at the end of the day, when you're out on that pitch or out on that court, every player has to perform.
Yeah.
And so I think that has been a learning for me in the journey. Like, how do you build that right balance and build a strong team culture? And that's been a little bit of pushback against what I think naturally happens in Indian teams is a more family-based culture.
Mm. And so let's talk about the sport and what you've brought to the business from, the fact that you've been an athlete. So what are those disciplines from that, or what's the mindset, or what's the competitive spirit that you brought from sport into business?
I think everything. No, I will say I think sports has contributed more to my journey as an entrepreneur than anything I learned in school, for sure. And most things I learned in a professional setting before this. I think starting with to be an athlete and to believe that you can be the best in the world at anything requires irrational optimism and self-belief. And so I think from that starting point, that's the same thing it takes to start a company. The second is then you have to back it with a lot of hard work. And I think that's the same thing that happens when you're truly trying to be an entrepreneur. The third is when you're an athlete, you have to build towards very, very long-term goals and realize that you're going to lose a lot more than you win on the way getting there. And that's built into your framework. And so I think that also helps you as an entrepreneur, that there's an incredible amount of resilience. There's a rule of thirds, right? The rule of thirds is that you're going to hate what you do a third of the time. You're going to be neutral a third of the time, and you're going to feel amazing a third of the time. And if you're feeling and following the rule of thirds, things are pretty much in balance. And I think if you have that framework, you can see that same at work. You can see the same thing happening at work. So I think that framework really helps you and realize to be the best in anything in the world. It took me 7 years. When I was 15, I was a top 20 player in the world. It's 7 years of training every single day of my life. And I lost so many matches and I had injuries. To have, a 7-year journey to do that and then keep competing, you need to have that same patience as an entrepreneur. I think Federer, for example, said he's only won 56 or 58% of the points he's ever played. Right. So I think the ability to lose and get up in the morning and then being rooted in deep passion. I think the founders that you probably interview here, including me, no one put a gun to our head and said, start a company. So to some extent, I don't buy into this narrative where especially founders like us, that it's so hard and it's so this. Yes, superficially, there are days that are very hard and superficially, there are days that are very stressful. But at a fundamental level, we are so lucky
to be able to do this.
Yeah, we chose this. We chose to have this job. We get to choose the problem we work on. We get to choose the people that we work with. And we made this choice. And with choices that follow our hearts and our passions and something we really believe in, how many people in the world get to do that? And I think that's very similar with most athletes, right? There's such a deep love for getting up and doing it every day. That I think I bring that psyche into building a company. And I feel like we should say that more in the space we're in. I think there's too much of a glorification of how hard it is for a founder, to be honest. Yes.
Well, you chose to be a founder, which is true. You chose it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And and I understand you have deep love for what you do, but is there anything else that makes you want to get up every morning and say, I'm going to do this again and again and again?
So I personally really enjoy the process of gaining excellence in something.
Okay.
And I think it's very much like being an athlete. Like today I still train 10 to 12 hours a week, right? Every day after work, I get on the court and I train at night for an hour to an hour and a half, from 9 p.m. to 10:30. And I train 3 hours on Saturdays and Sundays. In my training sessions, I probably hit thousands of balls every day. In some sessions, I will only hit the same shot for an hour. Right. And to an outsider, it may seem really irrational, but every one of those shots is different because every one of those shots, I'm tweaking either how I place my foot or how I hold my racket or how much time the ball is on the strings. And to me, I am completely engrossed in that because every day I get a little bit better. And it's absolutely the same thing in building this company or anything at work for me. I enjoy the process of tackling problems. And I can tell you today, I have learned so much that I would never have learned in life. And I enjoy the process of getting up every day and just doing something so many times that eventually you gain excellence in the field and hopefully gain a level of excellence that makes you better than most people who do it. So I really enjoy that.
Interesting. And you've been part of the Google Studio, you've been part of the Google Launchpad program. Talk me through that journey. How has it helped? What did it bring to the table? All of that.
So I think Google has been great in terms of a sense of visibility. So I think we've been fortunate to win like the Google Rising Star Award. Then we've been part of their accelerator program. I think, to be honest, like it's had some impact, probably limited impact on us building a business. But when we are young as a startup, it definitely gave us a lot of exposure. Exposure both in terms of the external ecosystem, even in terms of raising capital, and in terms of attracting talent as well. We're a tech company, we want to attract engineers. So I think that's probably the place that being a part of these programs has really helped. And I think the accelerator specifically actually brought in some investors because I was very fortunate to be in a cohort that was part of, it had the Gojek founders, it had founders of very large tech startups in the US who eventually actually ended up investing in LoveLocal. So I think from a talent and capital point of view, they have been very, very powerful.
And you've started to work with other industry partners, right? So you're part of the Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai, etc. How does that help in building the ecosystem for LoveLocal and for tech per se?
So team, just for some background, team, which is the Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai, is basically the coming together of reasonably scaled or scaled tech founders in Mumbai. That now includes 85 companies, us all the way to Dream11, Purple. I think people would be surprised of actually how many tech companies are based in Mumbai. And that's kind of where we created Team. So I'm an elected member of the governing council of Team and I lead everything partnerships. I think in terms of the ecosystem itself, it's helped because we are now, one, exposing the fact that there are far more companies in Mumbai than people were aware of. And what that's helped with is talent. And for us, talent is literally the fuel that builds our companies. I think specifically from LoveLocal, it's definitely helped from a talent perspective. My first AI engineers have come from Team's Mumbai Hacks. So we've had the largest AI hackathons in the world until recently. We had our latest hackathon, which had over 3,000 engineers. And 25,000 applicants from all over India, actually. So it's actually helped us actually continue to be at the cutting edge of tech and attract talent. The second, obviously, it helps with the profile of LoveLocal itself. We're an early growth stage company. And so from that perspective, our profile grows. And for me personally, I get to be around people who have built amazing companies in India. And so I get to sit and with these founders who are like 10 steps ahead of me and problem solve with them and get insights for them and let them mentor me as well.
So that's interesting. Let me ask this question.
Sure.
When you meet with other founders, right? What are the typical problems that you find every founder has?
I think our biggest strength and the most complex problem is always people. So I would say, I think most of the time we talk about people and talent, whether it's attracting it, retaining it, maximizing it, growing it. I would say that. I think India has thrown some of the most complex people things I've ever engaged with, to be honest. It's been a learning curve for me as well. So I think that's the first thing we talk about. I would say the second thing, especially right now, is tech is going through another massive step change.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of conversation we're having about what does the future of our tech companies look like? Are we changing the way we work fast enough with the advent of AI? Yeah. Not just in terms of us building AI tools and services for the external world, but in how we operate our companies. And so I would say right now, it's a huge conversation about which teams are you automating? What tools are you using? Are you building in-house or are you actually using some tools that are available in the market? How do you balance? Effectively, the new org structure is an interesting combination of for lack of a better way of putting it, humans and AI agents, right? So now when we manage people, we're managing a hybrid of people and AI agents. So it becomes a question of where are people better? And of course, people are important. And the second is where should we be using AI? And how do we then manage that and most effectively implement that in our org structures? And I will say the importance of people is still there. I know there's a lot of conversation about the replacement of people with AI agents, but we're in a customer service business, right? If you talk to customers today and users today, especially when they're complex issues, users and consumers want to talk to a human.
Right.
And there are limits to what an agent can do, and there are limits to the empathy and the interaction of that agent. Right. So, and even when we have two types of customers that we service on LoveLocal. We have consumers who shop and we have retailers who we also serve. For retailers, they want a human touch. They want a human touch, not just on the phone. They want a human touch in person. So I think it's a question of finding the right balance in the right places, that you want high empathy and the best service includes a human. And in other places where it is process driven and it is not the best use of what humans are good at, is where probably AI agents will be implemented. But coming back to your question, that's a big conversation, I would say, among founders today.
And given that you work with local retailers and local suppliers and things like that, they always find adoption of tech daunting. And I've been corrected at times saying not true.
Mm-hmm.
And you can correct me again if that's true. But how do you drive the entire adoption of technology, building trust? And I know that as the generation changes, the adoption changes, right? So the older generation of retailers, if I know, were not very happy, but the younger generation is wanting to adopt it. Where do you see the differences? Where do you see, tell us some exciting things that are happening there.
So I think everything you said was true. One, there's a segment that definitely finds it hard. And as you said, it is the older generation. However, the shift that I have seen compared to a couple of years ago when we were interacting with retailers in the older generation a few years ago, there was a lot of resistance to the importance of going online and the relevance of technology in their business. That has completely changed across age brackets. I don't think you'll meet a retailer, whether they're 20 years old or 60 years old today in Mumbai or across India, that will say at all that they don't want to go online or they don't want to adopt technology. Retailers that resisted or questioned why they should be on LoveLocal a couple of years are coming to us today and saying, hey, I want to be on LoveLocal. The second is then there's a generational handover definitely happening. So if there's an older business owner, he will have a younger family member, whether it's a nephew or a son, in some cases a daughter, not as much as I would like, but in some cases a daughter that will be involved in the business, and they're excited about being involved in the business because it involves technology. I think, like I said, the savviest business owners I know are local retailers. They're more interesting. Like if you sit for an hour with a local retailer and talk about how to run a business, it will be better than any of us, including me, to be honest. They are savvier, smarter, hustlers. They know how to make a rupee go as long as possible. They have no funding from anywhere. They have gone through so many evolutions and step changes in India. It's crazy. So the smartest people in the room, most often for me, are local retailers and entrepreneurs. I think the younger generation is really interesting in how they're leveraging technology as well. And so I don't think we need to train them as much. There's certain tools, they know how to use apps. The older generation will have someone younger to support them. But everyone wants to be online and use technology now.
How do you convince them? So what are the measurable results that they would see if they came onto LoveLocal? What Dhanda?
It's literally
just top line? Is it just top line? Is it other things beyond top line? Because I understand the Dhanda, but the Dhanda at a cost. They're also very, from whatever interactions I've had with a retailer, they're very bottom line driven.
So I don't think there's a question about convincing them anymore at all. Like I said, they are convinced that for business growth, they have to be online. Then the future Indian, if not the current Indian, is online. I think 2 to 3 years ago, they weren't convinced that online actually is going to deliver business growth. That has shifted. Ultimately, a business owner's framework is business and growth, right? They're no different from us. The second is, I think, at least in the conversation that you see maybe in our ecosystem more, is underestimating that they understand how complex it is. When we get a retailer online, he doesn't expect dhanda tomorrow. He doesn't expect suddenly orders to come and suddenly sales to happen. They related back to how they would open their own business, right? So they're the first people. They may not use the same terms that we do, but they will talk about, hey, customer retention is important. Hey, we got these new customers. Are they returning customers? What's the basket size? What's the ticket size? Today, the ticket size is maybe 300 rupees per order. How do I increase my ticket size to 500 rupees per order? So they are having complex conversations about business. All of these wrap up to eventually, hey, I want to grow my business.
Right.
And I think the perspective is two. One is I want to retain my business. I think they've realized that if I have to stay in business, I have to be online. I don't want to lose customers and lose business. And over time, I want to grow my business and be omni-channel and be online and offline. But it boils down to dhanda at the end of the day.
That is the retailer mindset. I don't blame them at all. I'm a Gujarati. I come from that community.
We have so many Gujaratis dominate the local retail scene in Bombay.
Right. So I understand where they come from. When you think about, and today omnichannel is becoming a way of life, etc. But when you think of how things are going to change in 2026, do you think they're going to be radically different, or do you think it's just upgrades of what is going on right now?
So, to be honest, I've been surprised at how little change has happened in the shopping experience given the advent of AI. So we recently launched an AI shopping assistant in the app, which we're tweaking. My vision for us, at least, and I would imagine that other e-commerce platforms, not just in India, but all over the world, should be leveraging AI. My vision is that AI enables us to bring the offline experience online completely. So for example, our AI assistants, when you go in, you can actually speak to him. It's in vernacular. We're actually now taking photography off the retailer. So the avatar is actually the local retailer of the store. It's no longer a generic retailer. So you will, speak to Mr. Lakshmi Chand Bhai or whoever the retailer owner is. You will see his face. It will be in the sound of his voice. Eventually, we're using photography to capture the actual inside of the shop. So can you actually walk through the shop through your phone, put things in your basket through your phone, and eventually using AI, because ours is very boring shopping, right? It's very repetitive. Ultimately, to me, our type of shopping should operate in the background. I call it zero-click shopping. Eventually, I should get to know you so well that you never have to check out again.
You just put everything in the basket on a rack.
No. Eventually it'll just show up at your door.
Correct.
Right? Because we have enough data about you. We know your preferences and we know your price comfort. And we know when you want things and need things, which is 90% of essentials shopping, to be honest, including freshness like fruits and vegetables. You should not need to open an app for us, right? You should have your potatoes showing up on Monday, onions showing up on Tuesday. I eat blueberries every 3 days of a certain quantity. It should just show up. Why do you need to launch an app to do the same thing again and again? And 10% of the time, you may have some discovery. There's a new product that comes. You want to try it out. You're having a special event at home. You have guests coming. So you break your usual pattern of shopping. So you'll go in and do something, proactively. But over time, I call it zero-click shopping. AI should enable you, one, at least in LoveLocal, to have the full offline shopping experience online. And the second is eventually we should be able to provide you with zero-click shopping. Now, do I see that happening in the next year in the e-commerce space? Unfortunately, I don't. For whatever reason, I feel like people are not that focused on that. I know we are, but I also think, maybe in the next couple of years, I believe this should happen. It will happen on LoveLocal if nowhere else. And I think once it happens on one platform, other people will do it. But I don't see this anywhere in the world. Like Amazon has not changed. No one has changed their shopping experience.
I'm a researcher, and one of the things that we find in research is that consumers are not yet ready to trust all of their shopping to AI. Yes, parts of it in essentials, they're getting there, but anything a little more involved and they're not there. How do you see those things changing in the next couple of years?
There are definitely issues of hallucinations, and even AI doing basic math, to be honest, is not great yet. I think one, it will get better. And two, to be honest, again, I think grocery, fruits and vegetable shopping is is so boring and it's going to be so data driven based on your personal history of shopping that the worst hallucination can happen is that you get the wrong product. So the risk is very low. And it can be taken care of through refunds, customer supports, like strong customer support flows. So I think in our category, it probably will not be as risky. So I can see users being more open to it. And also the cost of a mistake is very low because the cost of the items are low, the baskets are low, right? However, I can imagine in fashion and more complex and high-end items, I'm sure users will not be as comfortable. I imagine, especially in fashion, where there's a lot of opportunities for AI. But yes, things can also go very wrong. So it'll take longer, it'll get better, but I'm a believer in a world where humans are going to be important, even though I think a lot of the narrative right now is about just replacing humans, to be honest. And I'm also maybe a believer, and maybe this is going way beyond the scope of this conversation, but like the purpose of our existence. I think when we talk about the purpose of our existence and the purpose of a state or the purpose of society, are we trying to maximize for efficiency or are we are trying to maximize for people? And in a world where I think the purpose of technology should be to facilitate the maximization of people and their happiness and their lives, then I think we need to think about technology a little bit differently. And I think there's not enough that's being spoken about there, to be honest.
And so since we're talking about technology, you've built a very strong technology backbone, right? So what goes behind building a platform like this at scale?
Amazing people. I'll go back to that. To be honest, like it starts with great talent because I don't think when you build an e-commerce platform, like the playbook is built. I don't think admittedly, we're doing any that's like you're a researcher. We're not doing cutting edge research here. We're building things that people have built in different versions before. We're trying to do it better. Now we're doing it using AI tools as well. There are many AI tools around just coding as well. And we're building AI features themselves. I think that's the only change. But I do think it starts with, I would go back to, the way I built the tech team, to be honest. I think my learning is, I would have hired a little bit differently earlier on and had kind of the people that I have today versus not fully understanding that or being so capital focused early on. And I don't know if you can help that when you're early on, you don't have capital in getting the right people so they can build the best tech and scalable tech.
So there is a lot of data. Yeah. There is a lot of data about individuals and all of that. How do you manage data intelligence? How do you manage automation? How do you manage cloud adoption? I'm just trying to get a sense of the tech stack behind the business.
I mean, so we've just gone through a process of focusing a lot on data engineering because, you're right. There's a huge amount of data. There's a huge amount of data that goes through the platform. Then there's a huge amount of data that we need to process as a team to make better decisions and make them faster. So we've implemented a tool, I guess this is a free shout out for Snowflake, which is as part of our process of building our data pipelines and organizing our data internally. One of the interesting shifts that's happened with AI is that there's stronger infrastructure where a lot of level 1 analytics can be taken care of. And by giving more democratic access to your team of data that they need so that they can run their own analysis has become more possible. Whereas I would say maybe a few years ago, you'd have very large data analytics team, or in India, we call them MIS. Right. These would be very, very large teams who would honestly just be focused on like kind of extracting data and like copying and pasting and making reports. And so I think we are now focused a lot on data engineering, building data pipelines. We're using a tool like Snowflake. Obviously, all our data is cloud-based within India on Indian servers, so obviously fully compliant. But to organize the data and make it democratized within the organization so that level 1 automation of reporting and analysis has already happened. And then giving access to the teams to be able to do that by themselves. And do more complex analysis by themselves. And I think with that, the expectation now is that the average person in a team should be able to write MySQL queries, should be able to do a little bit, to be a certain level of data driven, to be able to analyze data independently and to be able to query and work with data independently. And that's no longer a skill that's just expected in, let's say, the product team or the data analytics team or the tech team. It's a skill that's expected now, at least at LoveLocal, in every team that you are, and pretty much from quite junior levels, to be honest.
And I know we are not there quite with the GDPR kind of guidelines in India yet. We have our own DBDP Act, etc. But as we move forward in the future, I know that data is going to become very difficult to manage. And where do you see data privacy, data protection, all of that coming for you?
I mean, for us, like, what's the data? We do have some personal data because we do deliveries, and then we know how many, aloo tomato you buy. So I think as long as we're compliant, I don't see it meaningfully impacting our business. I don't think we're sharing personal data anywhere. Any personal data that's being used is for the purpose of servicing you as a customer. If we go closer to Europe in terms of GDPR, yes, as businesses, we will have to do another level of compliance. But India has already required that all personal data stays in India, and all of us that are compliant with that, and that it's encrypted, etc. So I think as long as you're compliant, it's just another level of work that you'll have to do. But at least in our business, it should not materially impact our ability to do anything. I think it becomes more interesting in AI again, right? Like, these models are basically using, in many cases, just all the data available, violating copyright. There's a lot of issues around how we're building these models. So I think GDPR is going to probably impact the AI space and how that evolves, and how that then feeds into how you can actually build models, right, and on what data sets are they training, more so than, let's say, a business like us, where we only with customers' consent have access to this data.
And when you have so much data and when you have all of the tech that you have, how do you personalize experiences for neighborhoods and communities?
So I think because we have so much data, we can do that. I think it starts from the simplest is, in India, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, eggetarian. These are basic things, all the way to, like I said, the vision of this zero-click shopping experience where you never maybe have to place an order again, that I just know you so well that I can just have stuff delivered to your door the way you like it, when you like it. And to be honest, to me, that's the true localization of tech, because local retailers know their customers so well, right? I literally know my fruit seller, Patil and Gupta fruit shop, literally knows exactly which blueberries I like. He knows exactly which strawberries I like. He knows that I like perus that are harder than softer. So, and he's doing it, right? He is human. That's where humans will surpass AI. What I am trying to do is use AI to replicate the retailer experience that is so deeply personalized today. How can I do that, but bring it to an online environment? I literally know a retailer in South Mumbai with a family that effectively is doing zero-click shopping. He knows the family so well that he shows up at their door, walks into their house, and fills up the food basket. He knows when the kelas finish. He knows who in the house likes what. He knows what they like seasonally. He does not even wait for the family to place an order. And that's why we have informal credit systems as well. What is that running on? It's running on the fact that this retailer knows you, he supplies to you, and at the end of the month, you pay a bill. So if I can use AI to basically recreate that is the ultimate personalized experience.
True. So I know of a retailer who the kids are in somewhere in the world, and the parents, older parents, I hear, and the retailer is just managing the entire household. And you're right. That's the kind of experience. And I'm sure women are going to bless you if you get to the zero click, because that's a job off my job list.
Exactly.
What next? So you've talked about the zero click, but other than that, what next for LoveLocal?
I think for us is scale. We've spent a couple of years building the supply side, building the product, building the experience. We're solving a problem that hasn't been solved, which is the freshness problem. Fruits and vegetables, meats and fish are our hero categories. I think all of us, especially those of us that manage the house, know that we are not happy with the freshness quality on QCOM or dark store-led platforms or warehouse-led platforms, because you cannot actually get the same quality. When it comes to freshness, quality at local retailers is the best quality. And there is no one that has solved the freshness problem in India. If I asked you, what is the freshness app? Now that you know LoveLocal, I hope you'll say LoveLocal. But before LoveLocal, there was no app, right? And so for us, we've built that environment now, and that's the problem we aim to solve. The best quality is at local retailers. Now we want you to have convenience and quality together. A recent FT survey actually surveyed 24,000 Indian consumers, specifically for fruits and vegetables. And what they found is that less than 7% of Indians had even tried buying fruits and vegetables online. And of the 7% that have tried, 86% said that they had a negative experience and they were going back to their local stores because freshness online is just not up to the mark. So for us, we've built that. Our goal now is to scale. I would say within the next 6 months, we aim to be one of the leading e-commerce or quick commerce platforms in Mumbai. And by the end of next year, you should see us scaling into other cities within India. Over the next 5 years, we should be India's freshness app.
Metros versus smaller towns in India. Are you looking at changing things because they operate quite differently?
Yeah.
Are you looking at changing things as you expand and go into the smaller cities of India?
So we have this really interesting feature on the app that if you're in a place where we don't operate, you can press notify me when LoveLocal launches. So we actually have a real heat map of wherever there is demand for LoveLocal. And what's fascinating, it covers everything from tier 1 all the way to tier 3 and 4. So I would say from a perspective of the depth of India's digitization, every Indian wants an online first experience when they're shopping. From a business perspective, I think you'll probably see us scale first into tier 1s and tier 2s. That would be everything from a Mumbai to a Pune to an Indore to a Jaipur to a Bangalore, Hyderabad. After that, we would tackle the tier 3s and onwards. But the opportunity exists everywhere. And it's been exciting for us, honestly, to track that notify me button.
What's your do big mantra? And this is my last question,
Sure.
because I know we can continue this conversation for much longer. What's your do big mantra for 2026?
My do big mantra for 2026 is go all out. Don't leave anything on the table, literally to do big, no regrets. And yeah, don't leave, as we say, I say in sports, like don't leave anything on the court. We're not going to leave anything on the table with LoveLocal.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
It's really had fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.